Well, 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 well. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Yes, we are a little late. We had a lot of technical difficulties, and then me stuck in traffic. So we've had a lot of things going on, but we are here. And this is the first time that all four of us are here together. We are true sisters, we are biological sisters, and we're here to tell our story. My name is Leslie Montgomery, and you are tuned into LKM Kingdom Living Leslie's Lessons Learned. And the topic today is Sisterhood from Trauma to Victory. Let's get started. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. As I said, thank you so much for joining us today. My name, as I said, is Leslie Montgomery, and I have my three beautiful sisters with me. And as we've come today to tell you our story, and I think that's why we had some difficulties because this is a triumph moment for us as well. So I'm going to ask each one to just introduce themselves, tell a little bit about whether you're a mama, you got a husband, whatever you have. And I'm gonna start with the oldest. Linda's the oldest. I'm the second. Colleen is it's, Colleen is the
Third.
third, and then Ida is the fourth. So we have, Colleen was talking the other day about how she was in the middle. I said, I'm in the middle too. So Colleen and I are sandwiched between Linda and Ida because Linda's the oldest and Ida's the baby. So Ashley is saying hello, hello, hello to her aunties. But Linda, come on. Well, first of all, Linda and Ida are no strangers. They have been on here before for several different reasons, but I want them to introduce themselves anyway. Starting with Linda.
Good afternoon. As Leslie has so graciously informed you, I am the oldest, and my name is Linda Elias. I am a wife, mother, grandmother, great grandmother, author, and mental health coach. And I'm looking forward to the show because I believe, as I said to my sisters, that we had such a hard time getting on because this is really going to bring breakthrough to somebody's life. So, you know what happens when you're going to set people free. Something one of us says will set somebody free, and the enemy does not want that. So that is me.
Amen. Amen.
And thank you, Leslie, for having us.
Yes.
Sure,
Thank you. Thank
sure,
you.
sure. So I'm gonna
Yes,
have Colleen go. This is Colleen's first time doing a live. I think that's what she told us, and we're excited about having her. Tell us a little bit about you, Cora. Oh, I'm sorry, Colleen.
hey, Cora's getting ready to tear up the East Coast.
Um, well, I'm Colleen Walker. I'm in the middle of the sisters. Um, and I'm a mother of three adult children. I have two grandchildren. Um, I'm single. Um, And I'm just glad to be here today. I'm not going to lie, a little bit nervous. I hope I do good. Everybody enjoys this, and I pray that someone does get something out of this. And I love you, Sister Leslie, and I thank you for having me today.
So I want you to know this is not your first time on a live. Your niece is saying that you've been
Yup.
on her
Yup.
show, and I forgot about that. So this is not your first live. Remember, a few years back, you and Lawrence was on her show. So this is not your first live. So yay! This is your second time. So Ida, come
Okay.
on through here.
She probably blocked it out.
Yes, you're right, sis.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, sis, for having me. I thank God for all of my sisters. And my name is Ida Joyce. I am a mom. I am married. I have 4 children, and I am an author as well. Also, a cake decorator by trade and a crafter. Everything craft for me. Everything craft for me. I craft, I journal. I do lots of things. So uh, crafting is what gets me through life. Whether it's cake decorating, whether it's journaling, whether it is painting, whatever it is, that's what's helps me through life and through grief. That's a little bit about me.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. So
Amen.
today we are here because we wanted to tell our story, and Ida was the one suggested that we do this. We're not coming for doom and gloom, but we're coming to tell you where we came from to how now we are um, all saved, all uh, in the kingdom. I'm going to say we're all
Hmm.
living according to the word of God, and that
Amen.
is a blessing. But I have to say this because we had um, examples. We had grandparents that was saved, grandparents that did Bible study, grandparents that went to church, and we had a mother that went to church, and before she passed, she was learning. She was in school to be an evangelist. So we had my uncle, he was very heavily in the church. So we come from a background of those that served. My grandfather was a minister, a deacon, so we come from a background of those that served. I want to say served. I think about even daddy, how he served at St. Paul's church. He did the keeping up of the sanctuary, keeping up of the church. So we kind of understand, or I should say, Linda and I, maybe Colleen a little, but because we're older, we had more of a foundation in that. Now, I'm not saying that you guys didn't, but what I'm saying is you might not remember it as well as we do. But we are here today because at a very early age, I'm saying early, I was like 15, 16, I was about, I think 16. There was a shift that came to our family, even though Linda's shift came earlier than that. But it was a shift that came to the family uh, where the home was separated, where Ida went to live one place, Colleen lived another place. So it ended up where we all lived somewhere different, um, whether good or bad. We all lived in different households. So now it took COVID to really, we always was together, but COVID really brought us to a place with a foundation as a fact, as a family, as a unit. And so that has been a blessing in disguise that we never probably would imagine that would happen. So I want to take a moment and just talk. Look, I almost, when I said I wanted to take a moment, only thing I could think of was the Will Smith song. I want to take a minute and sit right down, tell you about a prince of Bel Air.
Woo, okay.
Woo! Sit right down. We want to tell you a story about the Walker family, the Brooks family. And that's why we're here today. So I might sound like I'm babbling a little, but uh, truly this is an honor. But I want to start with Linda because hers started a little earlier than ours did because of her, how she grew up and not knowing who she was to the reality, who she was to the family. And she might want to start a little bit before that, but I want to give her a chance to just talk about her, yes, Prince of Bel Air. Linda, Tell us about your story, your perspective of what you went through as a child growing up.
Okay, how far back did you want me to go?
Well, um, you know it's going to be in Willingboro. You can go back. Um, you can go back to New York, just saying how you grew up with parents that end up being your grandparents.
Okay, so as a child, we lived in the majority of my childhood till age 13, I'll say, until I was a tween. We lived in Brooklyn, New York. But before that, I also had a year here and a year there, where one year we were in California. And I'm not sure if it was a full year, my grandmother and I, but I went to school there. I believe it was kindergarten. And then we lived in Boston, my grandmother and I. Um, and it had to be first grade. So I don't know. I really don't know if we went from California straight to Boston or if there was a gap. It's not clear. But I'm thinking that I probably did first grade in California because that's where my brother was living and his wife, and that then we went from there, and I went to first grade in Boston because that's where my sister and her family were living. And I
Now, but
think
you
it
was born in Boston,
Yes, I was. I was born in Boston, but as an infant, moved to Brooklyn.
and why was that?
I'm getting there. So uh, I'm not going to be before you long. You know what that means, right? Now let me stop. Yeah, I'll speed it up, sister.
No, 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 no. I was just saying because you
Okay.
you left there because you was born in Boston. You don't know how long you lived there, and then you became a daughter to your grandparents.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I didn't know they were my grandparents. That's why I didn't say that. I'm trying to do it kind of
Mhm.
chronologically. But anyhow, I went to California and Boston with my mother. And as you grow up and you look back, you realize that they must have been, my grandmother and grandfather must have been separated for a year or two because I can remember coming back home first time going that I flew on a plane. And I remember my grandfather saying, "Don't ever leave me again or do that again." And that's it. I was just happy to be back in Brooklyn, you know. Um, and then when I was going into junior high school, the school I had to go to was not the best school. So I went and I lived with my sister and my nieces and nephews, who were really my mother and my siblings, and her husband, Johnny, which would make him my stepfather, for seventh grade out on Fort Dix. And then they bought a home in Willingboro, New Jersey.
Fort
What?
Hamilton.
That's right, Fort Hamilton. I'm sorry, Fort Dix. Yes, Fort Hamilton. And still, these are my nieces and nephews, and this is my sister, and I'm just living there so I can go to a better school. They bought a home in Willingboro, and they moved to Willingboro, New Jersey, and we followed not long after. And I guess after we were living there maybe a year, I had a conversation with my sister mother and my parent grandparents, and they told me the truth. that my sister was my mother, and my siblings were my siblings and not my nieces and nephews. And they told me because I needed to make a choice of where I wanted to live.
Mhm.
And the choice was I'm living at home. I'm staying
Mhm.
with my grandparents. That's my home. But I
Yeah.
want to go back because just when you guys were living in Newport News, Virginia, I don't know if you can even remember that, Leslie. We went to visit. And I believe at that point, the plan was to leave me there. And because I remember being out in the garden with Johnny, who would be stepfather, and I said, "What do you want me to call you? You want me to call you Johnny, or you want me to call you Uncle Johnny?" I can see it just as clear. And he looked up and smiled. He said, "How about you call me Daddy?" And I and I looked at. I said, "No, I don't think so." I'll call you Johnny. And they were living with a doctor, Dr. Reeves. He had a downstairs
Mm.
apartment. And at some point, Dr. Reeves told my grandparents, "Do not leave her here. Don't do that to her." He knew it would probably be too traumatic for me.
Mhm.
So I believe the plan was to leave me, but because of his intervention, they took me back with them. And then life went on from there. I thought that I just kind of fluffed it off like, oh, okay, they're my sisters and brothers. This is my mother, and I'm gonna go on. But subconsciously, I started um, questioning everything. Who am I really? What's my value? What's my worth? You know, how could they lie to me like this? And even though I knew how much they loved me and the sacrifice they made, my grandparents, because they were empty nesters, and for my mother to let me go, because I know she loved me, no doubt about that. So then that's the journey of not a rebellious teen, maybe a quiet rebellion. And I'll stop there and let somebody else go.
So I do remember them saying that mommy, I think Aunt Rose was saying that mommy had tried to come get you and they wouldn't let her take you.
So you know, um, thanks for bringing that up because growing up, you children realize that uh, something's off. Even as a child, I knew something's off because people are making comments, little comments that don't make sense until you know the other pieces of the puzzle. It's like, oh, that's why Uncle Junior made that comment. Little things like that. Or that's why, they said, oh, I don't know why you're here. Little things like that. Some comments were mean, but as a child, you're like, I don't know what they're talking about. But with hindsight, yeah. So I guess in my heart of hearts, I always knew there was another story. I always, I don't know that that's what I expected it to be, but I knew that there was more to the story. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's a good point because children have a sense of knowing things. There's that um, what you call it, that inner part of them that senses and know. I I knew that, I don't know, it was a prophet in me or just the instinct in me that, and instincts sound like an animal, but what's inside of me, that
Intuition.
made, yeah,
Intuition, yeah.
that made me
Discernment.
do, yeah, that made me, when we would go out, people would say, "Are you two sisters?" And I'd say yes. And Linda's like, "No, we're not." You know, what you keep telling people that for? But it was not only was it that something in me, it was something that I desired. I wanted
Mhm.
her to, be my sister. So it was easy for me to say, that's my sister. And sometimes people thought that we looked alike, that we was almost like twins. But the fact of the matter was that when I think about mommy and I think about the traumatic place that she was in, and that I was, oh, I found a picture around here that she had sent mama and papa, and it said, to mom and dad from your loving daughter. And I remember how bad she wanted papa's love, you know, how bad, that she wanted his approval. And I think about those things that in her life, she was trying to figure out things because of the traumatic things that she went through verbally, I'm sure, verbally. And for her to be in the place that she was in, I can see a lot of the trauma, the ups and downs, because she wanted love, she wanted to be loved, and she wasn't getting it. So she tried to get it other ways. But she was always the life of the party. When she came around, everybody loved her. They were excited that she was a part. And it made me think about you, Linda, even now, but as a young girl, and even now, it's the same thing. When people see you, it's like you light up their whole life. It's little Linda, it's Linda, that same kind of effect, that their people are excited, not people, the family is excited when you come around. And I don't know if it's partly that they related to mommy, but at the same time, you were brought around the family. You was this cute little girl that was always around the family. And now Chrissy has picked that up. Now Chrissy was the cute little girl that always was around, because mama and papa made sure that was the case. you know they were grandparents, and even though they might have had their faults, they made sure that you had the foundation of that family. They made sure you was always around the family, you knew your family. And that is something that even before papa passed, he said, I need y'all to stay with having the dinners. I need y'all to come together. And so that was something that was dear to their heart. And we know it was. But I think that even through the process of those negative things, that there were a whole lot of blessed areas in your life that you had. That was, and I don't even know to call it negative, but that was the downfall. But even through the downfall, they tried to make sure that you had a foundation, going to church, school. They made sure you were in things. I remember you being a cheerleader, being in karate, running track. You just was in everything, So they wanted to make sure they loved you like you was their child. Because when we found out, and I don't know, I might be talking too much. When we found out that we weren't, I mean, yeah, brothers Lester and Mark and Colleen and Ida and myself, when we found out that you was our sister, and they were younger. Colleen, I don't know if you remember it, but when we found out and we began to tell it, they was heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
They were heartbroken that it was being shared, that it wasn't kept that secret anymore. And that's the part that our family had. We had a lot of secrets. We had to, in our grandmother's eyes, mama, we had to be this certain family. And we had to uphold a certain standard, but the standard really wasn't there when it came to us as the children and where we fit in life. Even when I think about, even with how even when you and David and how mama made up this story about your circumstances and stuff like that. She always wanted us to have this certain, what's the word? Um,
Facade.
Facade
Image.
image. We had to have this perfect image. So we couldn't say certain things. We couldn't do certain things. And we bet not tell, and that was in most black houses, tell what has happened or what was taking place. We wasn't allowed to do that. What happens in this home stays in this home. I got many of beatings behind that one right there. So you know, Colleen was the youngest at the time. Well, Colleen was the youngest. She was the youngest for a moment. She wasn't the youngest at the time because when we left New York with a baby named Ida. So she was not the youngest at the time, but for a period of time, she was the youngest. So I don't know how much you remember, Colleen, as far as being growing up, because when we started out, we had a home. We had a daddy, we had a mommy, and we had a home. We lived in a very nice area, you know. We had a car, we had all the things that children should be privy to. we
Hmm.
we were blessed. We were blessed. So I don't know how much of that you remember as a child.
Um, I honestly only remember New Jersey. I couldn't tell you
Well, that's what
anything
I'm
about
talking
New
about
York.
as far as New Jersey, because you were young. When we moved to New Jersey, you had to be like what? I was only 10. So you had to be like 7
Six.
or
I'm
6 or
thinking six. For some reason,
6.
six always stays in my mind.
Okay. Okay. And I think that, well, you was always you was the sensitive one. You was always the sensitive one. But I think that when we moved to Jersey from New York, that every in our eyesight, everything was pretty good. We was able to go outside and play. We was able to get good humor ice cream. We had friends, and when we moved to, I don't know if y'all remember when we first moved to Jersey, and Linda lived with Mama and Papa, but she moved to New Jersey. We all moved around the same time. Linda
Hmm.
and them moved in June, and I think did we move before y'all or after y'all? But I think we moved
Before us.
before y'all. I know your
Mhm.
house was being built, and we used to go
Yeah.
and see your house being built. And I remember from the stick on up watching that house be
Mhm.
built. And my most exciting time was when we came down 130 and went up that hill in North Jersey and saw McDonald's. And we got
Yeah,
to stop at
White
McDonald's.
Castle.
I do
Or
remember that.
for me, it
And
was White Castle.
for you, it was White Castle. So it was like that. And then we got to stop at the bakery on High Street and get an angel cake. And that was my favorite.
And it's still there. J&B Bakery, still
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So at that time, those were pretty balanced times in our lives. Those
Yeah.
were really balanced times in our lives. Daddy was in the military, and we
Mhm.
were there because of Fort Dix and the military. And not only that, they were mommy and mom and papa were looking for a place to take the children to be in a safer place because New York was changing, and they wanted us to be in a safe place. I just thought about the cat. Well, what you said, it wasn't a cabbage, it was a cantaloupe, Linda.
I think it was a cantaloupe.
I don't know why.
Yeah, but
So
uh,
um,
whatever. It got thrown at us.
some boys was messing with us. And I think Linda had come to pick me up from school, and we were on our way home, and there was a produce cart. And right, Linda, you looking like what? That's where they got the
I don't,
cabbage
I
from.
don't,
They was
I
pulling
don't
it from.
remember the car, but yeah, it was probably like the stores they have the fruit and vegetables
Yeah,
out front.
Mm.
and they started throwing cabbages at us.
It might have been a
Like,
cabbage or
run!
a cantaloupe. Well, I don't know.
We was like, run, Horace, Forrest, run! And I fell and
And
did
I
my
tell her,
dress.
I saw the cabbage or whatever coming, and I was
You
like,
said
jump!
jump, and
And
I
she
took the wrong
jumped, and when
time.
she jumped, she landed right on it.
Mm.
So anyway, I that just came up in my mind, but we thus was the times that things was, like I said, balanced. Not only was it balanced, we were in a place where we went to even before that, Coney Island. We went to Atlantic City. We
Mhm.
did things. Papa was a air conditioned refrigeration man, and
Mhm.
we would go to New York to have dinner as a family. Oh, you remember?
Uncle Jack's.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm gonna kind of switch from that because I can go on for a minute talking about that. Uh, yeah, um, so we moved to New Jersey. We have little Ida. Ida, I don't even know if you remember anything before Boston. I remember when Ida went to school, first day Ida went to school,
Oh.
and Ida had to leave mommy, and Ida stretched out on the ground. They took her into the principal's office, and the principal said, "Okay, you leave her. You go ahead." And Ida was hollering and screaming because she had to go to school. And he kept her in the principal's office until mommy was gone. And then after that, she was fine, but she just did not like the idea that she had to go to school. And
Mm.
at that time, we were going to Buckingham Elementary School, and I'll never forget that. But so we'll move on from there to Boston. Um,
Yeah, I want to say
Go ahead.
Colleen
Yeah.
used to watch, I forget what cartoon she used to love. And there was a word. It was a big word, like that's I'm gonna say like that's superstitious, or that I don't remember what the word was. And we
Mhm.
used to say, that's not a word, that's not a word. Colleen, where you get that word from? And she's like, it's a word, it's a word.
I
Lo
remember
and
that.
behold, it was on a vocabulary test. I wish I could remember what the word was. But this character used to say that all the time. It'll come back to me. And we would
Yes.
tell, that's not a word. She like, yes it is. It's a word. Colleen was the quiet one.
Yeah, she
She was the
was.
quiet one.
She
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
She
And
couldn't get a word in edgewise with the rest of them.
well, at that time, it was only two other ones of us,
Oh
Lester and
goodness.
me and you, three of us. But yeah, because at that time she was the little one, in the house. So I don't know if you want to add anything else, Linda, um, uh,
No.
to what we were saying. And so moving to Boston was when things changed.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Mommy and Daddy separated. For a while, Daddy had the boys and Mommy had the girls. And then Daddy brought the boys to Boston as well. And we all was in Boston at that time. A lot of That's when Mommy, it's not when it started because she had trauma even in Jersey.
Mhm.
She would leave us and we wouldn't know where she was. And it didn't start in Jersey because she would do the same thing in New York. And I remember saying, I would tell Mama, take me to that church. It was Apostle Skinner. You remember Apostle Skinner, Linda? And I said, take me to that church. And I would get in, she would take me around to Apostle Skinner's church. And it used to always amaze me because they'd be shouting and fainting and passing out, wigs falling off and stuff. And I used to just watch it, but I would stand in line and go up and ask Apostle to pray that our mom would come back. And she would come
Mhm.
back. I remember that vividly, but it was something that when she couldn't carry on anymore, she would just check out. So that was not something that was new. Uh, I've seen it all through our lifetimes. At that time was when she began to, uh, Boston was when she began to really tell me she didn't like me. Tried to kill me twice. And I always said that she just saw a lot of her in me. And I felt like that's what part that she didn't like. And I remember um, when I got a job because I stopped going to school to try to help to take care of everybody. And I got a job. And I remember when I got my first paycheck, I went to the store and I could see the store. It was in Jamaica Plains, and I cannot remember the name of it. And I bought Colleen and Ida and Mark clothes. I remember I wanted Mark to have the little fire engine yellow raincoat and have the boots to match. I bought Ida these little white sandals and this little dress. And I remember one day she at that time I was down at Aunt Jessie's and I was sitting out with everybody. And Ida was only like, I don't even know if she was 5 years. Yeah, she had to be about 5 years old. Five, yeah, because she started school in Willingboro. So she might have been about six or so. And we had some neighbors downstairs. And here she came from all the way up Eggleston Way down to Mr. Dickey's store with these children. Now they're all little. And I'm sitting there looking at her now. I'm devastated. Not that she walked down the street all the way down to Academy Homes, that she's out there in the sandals and no socks on. I'm sitting there, I'm sitting there looking at her. She didn't see me. But one thing I could say, Ida was always her own person. She went in that store like she was 10 years old. She got what she wanted and she came out with those children. They went on back up the street. When I thought about that, I just thought about her personality, how she was always her own person, even at a young age. I think about Colleen and how she was, like I said, she was more sentimental and quiet, and she always kind of stayed kind of to herself. But when I think about y'all, and I think about the grace of God, which I call Elohim, and how he kept y'all through all of that, all the things that you've gone through, and not just the two of you, every one
Mhm.
of us had experienced something different.
Yes.
And so I want to talk about that for a minute, and then I want to kind of, because I know you, Ida, you have to go, so I don't want us to stay long, but I want to kind of dive into that area and then end up with us in our prayer call, if that's okay.
Mhm.
How far was the distance for a 6 years old? It was a distance. Um,
Mm. I'm sitting here thinking about that. You talking about from where we
from
lived in
Washington
Eggleston?
Street, yep, when we lived up in Eggleston. Now y'all done passed the grocery store, you done passed all these stores, and y'all came all the way down to Academy
That was a
to
long walk.
just
Yeah.
to think about crossing the street, Eggleston,
Yep.
and you know
The
that
the
was,
the bus station,
Uh,
everything. The T. Yep.
yep, and y'all came all the way down there to the store, got what
That's why
y'all
I don't.
wanted.
That's my first time hearing that story. I didn't know that.
Uh-huh. Yep. Hmm.
Um. But yeah. Most of the stuff that you guys just talked about, I don't remember.
Right.
Um. I really only remember being here. I don't really even recall being with mommy and them. Like, there's not a lot of memory that I have living with mommy, and then most of my memories is living with Juanita and Bradford. Growing up there with Mark. I listened to the story of you talking about mommy and how she would leave, and um, I remember many years ago not really being able to grasp or understand um, how a parent could ever leave their child until I went through postpartum depression. Um, and I remember wanting to leave, the desire to leave. And, you feel so overwhelmed with all that's going on around you.
Mhm.
You just want to run away from it all.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure why,
That's a real
you know,
thing.
huh?
It's a real thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure why um, God had me go through that experience, but in that experience, it helped me to understand why mommy did the things that she did, and uh, it allowed me to be able to let go and forgive that, because I could understand how someone could could get up and leave their children like that.
Mhm.
Um, and the only reason why I was able to maintain and get through that situation was because of my closeness with Christ, because of my relationship, because of the church ministry that I was under, because of God's grace more than anything. I was able to get through that process. And I remember um, God saying to me, your kids didn't ask me to come here, and if you get up and leave them, that is one of the most selfish acts that you could ever do. And that kind of stopped me in my tracks. And it helped me to say, okay, Lord, I'm going to stay here. And, you know, um, it helped me, like I said, it helped me understand the choices and some of the things that mommy went through, um,
Mhm.
to be able to understand how she felt. Um, you know, I can honestly say that I am amazed at God's love, at God's mercy, because to see where we are today from where we came,
Mhm.
it's just powerful.
Yes, it is.
It is so powerful.
Yes, it is.
Um, I remember wanting to commit suicide. Um, I remember the support and the love that my sisters gave me and how they were there for me.
Mhm.
I remember being hospitalized, institutionalized, and to sit here today, to see where we have come from, to see how I have grown, to see how my sisters have grown, to see
Mhm.
um, the blessings that we have in our lives, to see how COVID came and the changes and the restoration um, of our relationships, and how God just brought everything full circle. It's just
Mhm.
amazing to me.
Yes.
Um, and I'm so grateful to my grandparents, to them, those who in our lives who, my aunt and my uncle, they didn't go to church, but they made me go to church.
Mhm.
And it's mind boggling to me because, I know that was God's path, but for me to have the relationship with God that I have, um, I gravitated to it. I'm not,
Mhm.
you know, I know, like I said, it was just the Holy Spirit drawing me in. Um, I gave my life to Christ when I was 16, and I'm not going to say that I didn't have times when I backslid, but God
Mhm.
never let me go. He never let me go. Um, and it's just a true blessing, because so many people don't survive these type of situations.
Mhm.
So many people lose their minds. So many people end up on drugs. They end up um, alcoholics and all of the things.
Mhm.
And the fact that we are all here, none of us are addicts. Our brothers are not addicts.
Mhm.
Um, and the relationships that we have is just the grace of God. It's just
Yeah.
the grace of God. And I'm so grateful and so thankful that his mercy followed us and kept us,
Mhm.
you know. And recently I started doing Bible study about friendships, the friendships of women. We do
Mm.
every Wednesday. It's the friendships of women. And I'm like, Lord, I don't really have any female friends that I'm friends with. And God is like, you got your sisters.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, He has blessed me with sisters who are friends of mine.
Mhm.
Um, so that's was something that I was thinking about as I thought about us coming on here together, is just to see, just to talk about how God, his grace and his mercy has brought us through and sustained us and kept us. Um, and like I said, I don't recall a lot of the stories that you guys are sharing, but it's just such a blessing, such a blessing, such a blessing um to have you guys in my life too. Um, I don't know, just to have you guys in my life and to
Yeah.
um
So,
just to
so
know love of sisters.
what Ashley is saying is so true. We were abandoned by both parents when Daddy brought the boys to New York. He disappeared. We hadn't seen him. We didn't know where he was.
Mhm.
I don't know how somebody told me where he was. I don't even know who it was. And I called him. I went some. They gave me his number stuff, and I called him. And one of the things he said to me was that what he always had excuses though, but this one thing he said, "Oh, I didn't come around." Now this was um, he said I didn't come around because I wanted to kill everybody.
Mm,
He figured I needed.
Mm.
He wanted to end. He wanted to take us all out, himself, just the whole
Mhm.
family,
wow.
and that he said that that's why he'd stopped coming around. And
Wow.
just to think that he felt that way. I don't know if it was the anger part of him. I don't know if it was the disappointed part of him. I don't know what part it was, or was it just the thought from being in the military and war, and
Mm,
I
Mhm.
don't, all those things could have played a part. But we were, for a minute there, we were abandoned when mommy would leave, or him not knowing where he was, and not wasn't supporting us. He wasn't calling us. He had nothing to do with us. So there was a period of being abandoned by him.
Mhm.
So when I think about it, and Colleen, I think about how you are such a giving person. Your heart is so giving, and we appreciate that about you. We know that you're and I'm saying a whole lot, forgive me, y'all,
Wow.
that your story was different. You lived in a different home as well. Now, let me just say before what took place and how we ended up in different homes. And I personally believe that mommy surrendered us. But when the social workers came and took y'all out of the house, even though you were abandoned, the family still stepped in. You didn't go into the system like that. The family came in. Aunt Jesse's children came in,
Mhm.
and put support around you guys. And I remember, and I've told this story before, that I was standing at the door just devastated. And the social worker looked me up and down, and she said, "You can go where you want to go because of my age." But she
Mhm.
looked at me like I was just nothing. That's how she looked. And I
Mhm.
remembered my journey from that point, how I had really started spiraling down from that point and just made mistakes in my life because of being um, displaced in so many words.
Mhm.
And when I looked at it from my visual, everybody else had a place but me. That's how I
Mm.
see it.
Mhm.
Lester was at Daddy's. Colleen, and we'll talk about your story a little bit in a minute, was at Tommy and Jerry's. Ida and Mark was at Juanita's. And I called Aunt Jessie and I said, I don't have nowhere to go. She told me to go where I wanted to go. And Aunt Jessie said, well, come down here. You can come down here.
Mhm.
I stayed there maybe a month and I called Linda and David and I said, can y'all please come get me? So they came and got me. I ended up with mom and papa. But when I
Mhm.
think about it, I still had to take care of myself. Even
Mhm.
though I lived with them, I still was working. It was like I was there. I can't explain it. They allowed me there. They didn't treat me any terrible or anything like that. But I still was like doing what I did when I was with mommy trying to survive. I was still on the survival trail, if that
Mm.
makes sense, you know. So,
Mhm.
Colleen, how old were you when you went to Tommy and Jerry's?
Um, hmm. I want to say maybe 14. That's what I remember. 14.
You was 14. Ida was about 7, maybe Ida?
I thought it was younger than that, but maybe.
Maybe. And Mark was still
Um,
a
yeah,
baby.
he was only one, I believe. He was
Now,
very
one
young.
thing I do remember about Mark, when mommy and daddy separated, Mark was walking and talking, and he stopped
Mhm.
walking and talking.
Mm.
And he didn't really talk again until he ended up in Boston with mommy and us. So I do remember that. So each one had a traumatic experience in their own way. Each one,
Mhm.
not so much Ida and Mark. You had I would say you wasn't that traumatic, not because of the effects of it, but because of the age.
Mhm.
And they took y'all in as their own children.
Mhm.
So I don't know how you saw it, Ida, as growing up or when you think about it. But Colleen, tell us a little bit. I don't want you, I just want to know, um, I don't know what I want to know, Colleen. I don't know. Can't tell you to say.
Um,
Because your story was different.
I'm just gonna put it to you the best way I know how to say it. Um, I only remember even in New Jersey. I do remember when we moved there, and I think you were right. I was about maybe 6, and that was the rancher house. And then I remember us being able to go outside and play, having playing with the neighbors, um, being able to play hopscotch, and we were able to use the erasable chalk and make the squares and everything to play hopscotch and
Mm.
jump rope. We did all the regular stuff that children do, riding bikes, playing games, things like that. But I also remember, like you said, I was very sensitive. I liked being alone a lot. That started at a young age. Um, and of course, I was just a child, so I didn't really know why I wanted to be alone. Um, I do remember like being in my room a lot. I don't know what happened to all that creativity because Brittany has it now. I don't know what happened to mine, but I used to
It's
be in my
probably
bedroom
still there.
creating all kinds of stuff. I would make the husband, the wife, and then I would build the house and all the furniture and everything. And mommy would come peek in the room like, "Don't you want to go outside?" I said, "No, I don't want to. I want to stay in my room. I'm doing stuff, you know." So then after a while, I remember, and you might remember this too, Leslie. Mommy started thinking something was wrong with me, so she took me to, I think, a therapist.
School therapy.
Yeah,
And
and
it wasn't, it was because you were so sensitive.
right, but also mommy thought I wanted to be alone too much. I remember that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, it's not like I don't go outside at all. So I went, you know,
But it
and they,
wasn't, it was the teacher that encouraged her to take you. It wasn't that she,
oh,
yeah,
okay. See, I wasn't aware of that part. I just thought mommy felt she needed to do it.
no.
And I think it went well. The doctor didn't feel anything was wrong with me. She's just a child that just likes to be by herself sometimes, you know. And it definitely was part of my personality because as I got older, I still was that way. I'm still that way today. Unless we're all getting together for a gathering, I don't tell you, I'm in this house. Like we're all gonna go over their house tomorrow, but other than that, it don't bother me being in the house. I'm fine.
I'm right there with you.
I got food. I got food.
All
I
of
got
us.
my bed. I got my TV. And I don't like unexpected visits. Now, if, you know, like if it was Ida or Brittany, you know, my close family, they could show up at the door anytime.
Yeah,
But
somebody else
someone that
gonna
I'm
call
not,
us like that too.
no. For me, you gotta let me. You gotta let. For
And
me, you gotta
and
let
you
me
know
know you
what?
coming over. You ain't getting in. Matter of fact, I
Yeah.
wouldn't even get out the bed to see who's at
Not
the door.
Marie.
I hear the doorbell ringing. I be like,
Not Marie.
nobody's coming over that I know of. I'm finished watching TV, so
And
I'm
I'm
sorry.
excited. I'm the opposite. I'm excited. I'm going to the door.
No. And usually I didn't, Brittany, if they are going to come by, they tell me anyway. Now, if they knew they were coming by, I would get up. But if I didn't know anybody was coming by, sorry, you got to stand out there, go home, whatever.
Listen,
So
you interrupted my craft time. Go away.
I know, I know, I know. So I just basically remember that. I remember moving to the bigger house. I remember Grandma Beulah, I think, was she still
That
living
was
with us?
on
Okay,
that
yeah, I
was on
remember
Bud
her.
Hollow. She lived with us on Bud Hollow.
And then when
And
we
then she
moved
got
into
her
the bigger
own
house,
place. She got
okay.
her own place.
Oh, okay, okay. So I do remember that house. I remember Ida and I was sharing a room, and I remember our room was right by the steps. And I remember I used
I must have got
to.
into all of your stuff, huh?
I honestly don't remember you doing anything like that, Peaches. I really don't.
Oh, okay.
I really don't. Um, and then I used to have this horrible dream of a headless man coming up the stairs, but that started at the rancher.
I remember that
Now, I don't
too.
know if it was something I got affected by in our lives that was causing this to happen. And I would be laying in the bed at night and he would always come and bother me. And like, I'd see him and it seemed so real. And I would hear footsteps outside the window, all kinds of crazy stuff. And then I figure, oh, good, we're moving now. We're moving into another house. I probably won't see that man anymore. And sure, lo and behold, he was still coming up the steps in the new house. I was just
Oh
like,
man.
it wasn't until we came to Boston that I didn't see him anymore.
Wow.
So that is a little suspect. It wasn't until we came to Boston. So I don't know if that was a sign of something or whatever. But once we came to Boston, I'll make it as quick as possible. All I remember, we lived with Aunt Jessie till mommy found a place for us to live. I'm telling you what I remember. We ended up moving up to Eggleston. I went through a lot of traumatic stuff in Eggleston when we lived up there. I do remember mommy was very creative too. Mommy did the whole house herself.
Oh
Put
yeah.
in a sink in the kitchen,
The
painted, wallpaper,
bathroom.
you name it. She hooked that house up. It was nice.
When she purchased that place was a dump.
Yes, it was.
And when she got finished with it, it was livable.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
you have to understand that in Jersey, she was a home decorator. She worked for what's the name of that store? She was an interior decorator for them. And she didn't go to school for it,
Hmm.
but she went in. and I don't know really how she got the position, but she got the position to go into people's homes and help them decorate their homes. She was created in so many ways. And not only did she do that, she was just creative,
See,
opening the
I
space
didn't
for
know
beauty
anything about
schools.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
knew she was creative, but I didn't know anything about that extra stuff.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
She decorated the house even in Willingboro. She
Yeah.
got the furniture reimposed. No, there was no Edith Allen back then. Ethan Allen back then. Oh,
Mhm.
Linda, if I could call the name, I'm sure you.
Pomeroy's.
No, 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 no. Mm-mm. Yeah.
It wasn't Pomeroy's.
Uh-uh.
No.
Uh-uh. But
Mhm.
she ended up working for them, and when she worked for them, they loved her so much and the creativity that was within her. So it's in us.
Yeah.
It's in
Yeah.
us.
Yes, it is. Um, but once we got there, the one part I can't remember that you might need to refresh my memory on is I don't remember how long we lived up Eccleston before we got separated.
It
That
was
part
a
I don't
few
remember.
years. It
How
wasn't.
long?
It was a few years.
Okay,
Well,
so I
I
do
won't say
remember,
a
like I
few
said,
years because we moved there like in '74,
hmm
and I left there like in '76 maybe, because
hmm
I was working at the hospital in '77. So it wasn't that long of a time that we were up there, but it was a few years. Yeah.
okay, and I do remember. I know you said mommy something about mommy surrendering us, but I thought it was because mommy kept trying to commit suicide, and
Yes,
that
it did.
the city gotten. I thought it was the city or the government or whoever gets involved with when there's
I
issues with
think
children.
That's
the
a part
woman
that
who
was.
owned the place called child services
Child
or
services.
called
But
they
that was you're
called
talking about. No, that's not there. You're
what you
talking
called
about.
mama and papa.
Yes, she's talking about when mommy lived on what was that street she lived on with the hill
Akron.
over Akron. She's talking about over there. This is
Uh,
before Akron. Yeah, but Akron, I can't remember the lady's name that owned the building, but she did
I forget
call.
her name too, but I remember Akron, but I also remember Eggleston. Mommy was always trying to commit
Oh
suicide.
yeah, every time I would come in from
And
work and they'd be pulling her out on the stretcher.
yeah, and it
Mhm.
was just constant, constant. And during that time that we lived there, I was going through a lot of abuse that mommy didn't even know about. I was being abused by different men. I'm not going to go into details, but different men were allowed to be in the house, and some of them were family members.
Mm.
And they were touching me in ways that they should not have been touching me, but I didn't know any better. I was just a scared kid, and I thought I was going to get in trouble if I even told anybody. So I
Mm.
never said anything. It was many years before I even told mommy. I think I was living with finally living on my own when I told mommy anything.
Mm.
And so all I remember, we finally ended up getting separated, and I went to live with Tommy and Jerry. And unfortunately, the abuse continued, and I couldn't do nothing about that either. Tommy was a severe alcoholic, um, and
Jerry.
he most times was not there, or if he was there, he was intoxicated. So he was not aware of what was going on, and she used to threaten me that if I told him that I was really going to get in trouble. So Tommy never knew, and I never even got to tell him before he passed away.
Mm.
So he never mistreated me or did anything wrong to me. The mistreating came from Jerry
Mm.
and one other family member, but again, I'm not going to go into all that. But it wasn't our family. Um, and then after that, when I turned 16, I think that was when they felt it was okay for me to go home because I was old enough to at least do for myself, plus help mommy if she needed help with anything. And I remember going home. and living with mommy. And that was right before the first year I started high school.
So yeah, and I think all of y'all had gone back at some point. There was something that you mentioned that I you were talking about the different men, and I remember saying to mommy a couple of times, I would say, "Mommy, please don't bring these men in the house," and she would say, "You can get out," and she would put me out. Then she would call daddy and tell daddy to come talk to me because I'm not home. And the last time he came, he this is when he started coming back around, and he sat us down and he talked to us. He says, "What's really going on?" And I said, "Daddy, she keeps bringing different men in the house, and the only thing I did was ask her not to do it." And he said,
Hmm.
"You don't ever have to come back." You
Hmm.
know, So she, and the reason why she was doing it was because she wanted love. The
Yeah,
unfortunate part was
that
the
desire. Yeah.
ones that she was choosing was not even mentally stable enough to love her or wanted to. They
Hmm.
just wanted to use her, and they, abuse her. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Hmm.
You know. So yeah. So that part was really it was a lot. We went through a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was far. Because even when I went back home with mommy and we was on Akron Street, I know, I'm sure you remember, Ada. I think y'all came over maybe like every other weekend and spent the weekend with us.
That was
And
crazy. Street.
and I always enjoyed that because I felt like, I could be at least two of my siblings,
Yeah.
And then 16, 17. Yeah, I think I was only home, what, 2 years before I left and went and lived with cousin Mary. And I don't know if you remember, Leslie, but mommy kept calling you and telling you things that were not true. And I can tell you honestly, they were not true. But in her mind, she thought they were true. She thought I was getting high on a regular. Getting high? My lips wasn't even touching anything. Um, I was eating up all the food. I think I was dating Chanel's father at the time. Me and him was getting high and eating up all the food in the house. And I was like, what? So I
That was
think you did
mental
talk to me
state.
one day and you said that you wanted me to behave. And I was like, I'm not doing anything. And so I think me and mommy got into a big argument or something one day. And something just said, you need to leave. You need to leave. And I had a pretty good relationship with cousin Mary. And I called, I said, Mary, I can't stay here. Can I, even if it's just temporary, can I just come and stay with you and your family? And she said yes. And she opened her door to me. And I continued to work a part-time job. And I went to school. And even after I moved out of her house, I still continued to go to school because I know a lot of times children will think, oh, I'm on my own now. I don't have to finish school. But no, in my heart, I wanted to finish school. Um, and I ended up finishing school pregnant with Chanel. But I still walked across that stage and I got my diploma, vomited and all. But
That's
I
something
was
to be proud
determined to
of.
get my diploma. I was determined. No matter my best friend Gloria, I know you remember her, Ida, Linda, Leslie might not. She had my back all the way. She knew how sick I was, but I was determined to walk across that stage and get. And I don't remember mommy being at my graduation. I don't know if you remember, Ida. I know Juanita and them was there, but for some reason I can't remember if you and Mark were there. Juanita and Geraldine supported me. They supported me a lot, especially when they found out I was pregnant with Chanel. They were a great support to me, and Mary too.
Now I'm going to
And
say shout out to Mary because Mary has had your back
Mary has
all
had
the
my
way.
back. Don't even make me start crying. Mary has had my back. See, you went and messed me up. I'm trying not to cry. Mary has had my back probably since from the moment I had Chanel on. And then when she found out that her father was abusing me, and I ended up staying with him for 5 years again because I was scared.
Oh, you
I
talking
was
about
still
you talking
young.
about Rudolph?
Right. I was trying not to
Okay.
mention his name, but anyway. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. No, no, no. It's okay. No, it's okay.
Leave it to
uh,
me.
the, the abuse I went through with him lasted for 5 years, and I was afraid to leave. I thought he was going to kill me. And I remember Chanel. Oh, and I remember Ida and Mark. I wanted them over as much as possible because I wanted them to get close with their niece. So I would have them come over and I asked Juanita, can I have them spend the night, maybe every other weekend or whatever, whenever it's convenient. And that way they was able to come over, play with Chanel, get close with her and everything. And I remember when she was just maybe not even a month old. And I remember holding her, and he and her father got angry about something, and he just took me and threw me down with her in my arms. He didn't even care I had her in my arms. And I remember squeezing her real tight because when I fell, I didn't want anything to happen to her. I didn't really care about myself, but I didn't want nothing to happen to her. And he was just very destructive. He would just tear everything up in the house and break stuff, and. So I made it through that. Thank God to Mary. I finally opened up and shared with her what was going on. And that's how I got over here where I live now. And we moved here in February 1983. Chanel was 2 years old. And I've been here ever since 42 years. Most people are
You've
like,
been there longer
42
than
years?
I've been born. Shoot.
Yeah, 42 years I've been here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I just continued to live my life. He did try to harass me a little bit when I first moved over here. And then eventually he left me alone.
Yeah. So,
So,
yeah, and Aunt Jessie used to call me, and I remember she would, when mommy would try to kill herself, she would call me and say, Leslie, you got to come. Mildred tried to kill herself again. And the last time I said, I'm not coming. And I didn't come anymore.
hmm
She did not try to commit suicide anymore after that.
mm,
I was like, I'm not coming. I told Aunt Jessie, I'm not coming.
hmm
I'm not coming no more.
hmm
And the other thing was the doctor told her, you're going to do it one time too many,
hmm
and it's going to be no more.
hmm
But yeah, Aunt Jessie was calling me all the time as well and telling me stuff and, trying to get me to come back to, help get things together. And I was like, I'm not doing that
It's
because I
funny
had
hearing you say
spent,
that, Leslie, because I remember when I wanted to commit suicide and I said to the Lord, you know what, I'm just gonna take my life. And the Lord said to me, go ahead, I'm not gonna let you go.
mm,
And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? Never mind, because then I'm gonna have to come out and be in the hospital and all this other stuff. Like, it ain't even gonna be worth it. I'm all set.
hmm
my thing was when the enemy did try to bring the thought to my head, and I was like, I'm not going to be like her. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to say. I didn't want anybody. They already said that I was you just like your mom or whatever, and I was like, that was not going to be my story. I'm just like her, you know.
Yeah.
So I that was part of my not, you know, doing that, or because it just like you said, it wasn't worth it, and it's selfish. It's
Mm-hmm.
selfish, and I'm not saying it's selfish. People do it because they feel less like they're not wanted, they feel
Yeah.
unloved, they feel like they have no hope, they feel like people will be better without them,
Yes.
so there's so many areas, and I'm going to stop talking because Linda.
Um, can I piggyback off of what Ida just said for a second? Just backing up a little. Uh, the two times actually I wanted to commit suicide, and the first time was when I was living with Tommy and Jerry. I just wanted to die. And don't laugh, Ida. Um, I believe, even though to this day we're still friends, and she works my nerves, and I know that. Ooh, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm not
The
going to
truth
mention.
is
I'm
the
not going to
truth.
mention any nerves. I'm not going to mention a name, but it was someone that I feel like her and her family saved my life. They kept
I
me
agree.
from,
I
yeah,
agree. Amen.
they helped me. They kept me from committing suicide. And then the second time was when I went home with mommy and I was 16. And I remember laying on the bed and I did call for help though. I don't know if that was God telling me to do that or just myself. Is that line where you could call when if you feel like you need someone to talk to? And I was telling them I just wanted to die. I just wanted to die. I think there were some things that me and mommy was going through in the house, and I was just having a hard time dealing with it. And I was also being sexually assaulted by the gentleman she was dating. And I think I just was like, I can't. This is enough. When is this all going to end?
Yeah.
I just want to be gone. And you're right. You do just want to be loved, Leslie. That's all it is. You just want to be loved,
Mhm.
and I'm so glad, Linda, you didn't have to go through none of this. I know you feel for us and you love us and you feel bad that we had to go through this, but I'm so glad you did. Sister Linda, I'm so glad.
Interesting. I mean, even though I lived with, I didn't go through all of that, but for years I had, I guess you would call survivor's remorse. I mean, you guys didn't die, but there was a guilt, you know, that I didn't go through all that I
Mhm.
had to deal with, and I don't know. But there was a season where I wanted to take my life too, and the person who shall not be named, but had a prophetic gift, told Leslie to call her sister because the enemy was trying to take her life. And Leslie called and said, the person who will not be named said, the enemy's trying to take your life, trying to take your mind. Get up. And I was laying in the bed, and and I had a plan, but that one call, so I guess I owe him that for being obedient. He could have said, I don't like that chick. I ain't telling her nothing. But then I, I got up. But there was Colleen, I don't know if it was the gentleman or not, but I can remember being at Mildred's and the kid, all of you weren't there. Everybody was older because I think I was already married. I don't
Hmm.
think David was with me, but there was a
Linda, you
friend, a
was
male
already
friend.
married through most of our lives.
Yeah, yeah, just about, except yours and Lester's probably. But there was a male friend there, and I just did not like him, and I don't know if it was him or not. But I remember, and I don't know what I did or what I said, but I remember while I was there, he left.
Are we talking
And
about Akron Street?
I don't remember which house it
Oh,
was.
okay.
And Mildred said to me, he's afraid of you.
That's a good thing.
He's afraid of you. And I don't even know what it was. I don't remember saying anything to him or what. I just knew that I did not like him.
Hmm.
Um, and my resentment to her, to Mildred, until I could, unfortunately, after she died, I began to understand was what you guys went through to her and Johnny. And I said to her, and Ida said this in the beginning, she was on the phone with somebody and she was crying. She was overwhelmed with the kids. I was like, please, I didn't say cut it out in my head. I was like, oh, please cut it out. And I couldn't take it anymore. I said, well, why did you have so many kids if you can't deal with it? And she just thought I was so mean. See, did you hear what she said? I don't know what she said to me, but I was serious. Why are you crying? but you had all these kids. You knew after the first two, me and Leslie, you couldn't handle it. But
Mhm.
I'm so glad she had y'all and that you were.
It was,
And
yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
I am glad that I have, and I had. It took a while for me to be able to say, yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to go through that. Um, but
Linda, do you mind me asking you one thing that I remember from earlier? Once you found out that we were not your nieces and nephews and that we were actually your sisters and brothers, did the dynamic change? Or did you still love us the same way?
And that's a
I
good
still love you
question.
the same way. Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
it changed.
Okay.
Yeah, because we were always in each other's lives.
Right, right. I was just
You
curious.
know,
I was just
I was
curious.
like, "Daggone, Leslie was right.
I was
I
gonna,
want to be an only child."
I was about to say the only change she had to make was towards me.
This little girl coming over here playing with my toys, getting on my
Ooh,
nerves.
she hated it. But
Oh God.
even when I think about it and how mommy told Bunny that she hated the doctor when she was pregnant with me, that he told her she was pregnant with me. And Bunny said, now that's a nice thing to tell your child. Um, and I remember somebody saying that Papa said, leave her alone. She's here for a reason.
Mhm.
And you can sit here. I could sit here all day and sell story after story of things that happen and unfold, and that um, you know, just like Ida and Mark might not have liked the purpose of having to live with Juanita and them, but it was a safe haven for them, you know,
Yes, it
and
was.
that
And I
was a
used to want to be with them. I used to
Yeah.
wish that Juanita could take me too once I started going through everything I was going through. And
Yeah.
I've never been a jealous person, and I'm still not to this day. I don't get jealous about stuff because I feel like we can all have and do anything we want if we really want it. But at that time, when I was younger, I was jealous that I felt like they were getting better love and care and compassion, and I wasn't getting any of that.
And
but
you know that Mama and Papa definitely didn't know.
right.
Uh,
I thought Mom and Papa was going to be at least my Calvary, because I
yeah,
didn't, and Mark was in
they
a good situation. I wasn't.
they didn't know. But I do remember, and just that I remember Mama and Papa were upset when they found out that you guys had been split up. They were
So they
upset.
didn't know right away?
Oh,
No, by the
Oh,
time they found out you guys were already split up, they were upset because nobody called them first.
and I
okay.
You
I'm
remember.
glad you're telling
know,
me that, because I'm not going to lie.
so
I
I
was a
just
little
felt,
angry
yeah,
at Mom and Papa because I
no,
said, why would they not
they,
come get us?
they
I did
didn't
not know
know.
they didn't know.
They didn't know until you were placed in everybody's homes,
Okay. Thank you for
and
sharing that.
they were very upset
Yeah,
that um, they didn't know first.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
because
I even, and no offense, I even thought Leslie, I said, how could Leslie just leave us?
I was a
yeah,
'Cause-
kid.
No, 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 no. Remember
Yes,
when you turned 18, then you was able to go where you wanted. So
I wasn't
maybe
18.
I was in a fairy tale world and I thought the older sister was going to save the younger sisters and
That's what
we were all
Leslie
going to
said
live
too.
together. That was what was in my mind back then.
that's because that's what she was doing.
Yeah,
You
I
know
Hmm.
what I mean?
yeah, from
She was the savior when she was there. She
Hmm.
was the one knocking men upside their head,
Hmm.
and,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
but
putting
even in
them
one
out
world.
and stuff. Even so, yeah, that was she was your safe haven in the home. If she knew about something, Leslie would kick her brother's butt in a minute, and
But for myself.
Right. And because of my fear, I never told Leslie. I never told
Oh,
mommy.
it would have
And
been
Ida and
over.
Mark were too young.
But
And
It
I
would have been
just
I
over.
definitely didn't tell Lester.
Yeah.
I just kept it all held inside, you know.
But
It was just sitting there.
I was
Hey
always,
guys.
even in Willenboro, I know you got to
Ida.
go. We're going to
Yeah.
close out.
Okay.
Even in Willenboro, it was my responsibility to take care of the household. It was my responsibility to make sure y'all was up on Saturdays. The house was clean. Mommy taught me how to cook at 9 years old because she said it's time for you to learn how to cook. So I was responsible. But this, thank you for the conversation. I don't know if we'll continue this and do this another time or not, but our purpose for doing this was to allow you to people to understand that there is still hope, that
Yeah,
there is victory. We
yeah.
want you to know that no matter what you went through, that you are an overcomer if you here today.
Hmm.
And that even though you went to, each one of us had to go through what we went through. It was
Yeah,
the purpose.
so
What
perfect.
you went
Yeah.
through might not have, you might not have seen the purpose in it, but there was some purpose in it.
Hmm.
So as we close out, I want to thank my sisters. You guys are amazing. You're doing amazing things. And I just appreciate the fact that we could come together in love. Because if you remember when we first started the prayer group, it wasn't all that much love going on. But but now it's peaceful and it's working out. So thank you so much for being here. It's time for us to write the book. It's time for us to put our story in the book because there's so much to tell. And thank
Hmm.
you everyone that has stayed here, listened to us. And until we meet again, I'll be on Sunday. Myself and Sister Wanda and Alicia and Mike will be here to see you. So once again, we love you. We can never love you like Yahweh loves you, but we do love you.
Yeah,
Keep your head up and keep going on. Till we
yeah.
meet again, we
We
love
love
you.
you, sis.
Love you
Proud of
all.
you.
Love
Good
you,
of your
sis.
platform. Yes.
Yes, love you, sisters.
Love
Mm.
you.
So, and this is the result of prayer.
Pray.
Yes,
Man.
absolutely.
And I believe
Yeah.
mommy was a part of that, praying for us. I
Yes.
just
And we all have one thing in common that I realized when we were sitting here in our childhood. We all lived with Aunt Jessie.
That was hey, she was the one. Jessie was my auntie and my friend. Anything I need to know, come over here, girl. Let me whisper it to you.
You need a Valium?
Valium. I used to get them and send them to her. Yes, she said, let's go to the doctor and get Valiums. Me and my kids would just
Uh-huh.
go get them and send them to her. All right, guys, we're gonna go. I'll
Girl,
leave
you
this
look
room here.
good no matter what.